Four examples of Republican idiocy or Republican sickness. The first one, as you know, the Republicans, Obama asked the Republican-controlled Congress for just under $2 billion a couple of months ago to help fight the Zika virus, the virus that causes these hideous birth defects and can also cause neurological disorders in adults. So Obama said, let's try to get ahead of this. $2 billion. Republicans said, no, we're not going to do that. Yesterday, the Senate voted a $1.1 billion, not $1.9 billion. That's an $800,000 difference. But an $80 million, whatever it is. The Senate voted $1.1 billion in emergency funds for research, vaccine development, mosquito control efforts, and other programs. Now, according to the CDC, that doesn't provide as much money as these public health agencies like the CDC say they desperately need to fight this. But they said it is a decent start. Okay, $1.1 billion. However, the day before, this filthy sewer, this filthy septic tank that is the U.S. House of Representatives approved $622 million. Half of that. Half of the $1.1 billion. And furthermore, these sewer dwellers in the U.S. House insisted, and I mentioned this this week, insisted that money come from the Ebola Fund. These filthy son of a bitches are not going to do one thing for the American people or this country. Why is that not understandable by people who vote for these devils? Approximately 11 or 12,000 people, I've read, died of Ebola in Africa. So the Republican sewer dwellers want to take what money's left that is needed, American money, American taxpayers, but we're not doing it necessarily because we're altruistic, but to defend ourselves against this Ebola virus. Part of that money stays in the country here for research and development. Part of it has gone to Africa to help them. And the sewer-dwelling Republicans have said, no, Zika, Shmika, you want money? Get it from your Ebola fund. And not only that, the money that the House is saying take from this fund to fund this fund would only last until the end of September. How does it come to pass that we are led by these kinds of moral degenerates, these kinds of criminals? Now, the Times, in an editorial, I think it was today, said this. Listen up. Some ultra-conservative House Republicans have said that they do not consider Zika a major health crisis. It's as though they haven't seen the pictures of the children born with the deformed brains and the deformed skulls that come as a result of this virus attacking a pregnant woman, which puts the lie to every goddamn comment these filthy Republican bastards have ever said about protecting the fetus. Now, you know this. We know this. But don't the Christians in this country who are so against abortion because of the fetus, it's a human, it's a little baby in there. These are the same people who are saying, fuck the fetus. We're not going to provide any money to develop a vaccine or do research to protect fetuses that haven't been conceived yet, but will be. Now, what's a word that is more intense than hypocrisy? Whatever it is, that's what these filthy sewer dwellers in the U.S. House are demonstrating. They also are showing themselves to be hypocrites even on the issue of, how do they put it, preborn children. God damn. Now, the other part, some of the not ultra-conservative Republicans, just the sick bastards, not the super sick ones who don't even consider a major health crisis, Zika. They're the ones who don't consider there's any kind of global warming problem. Okay, but let's move down a level to just the conservative Republicans. They are using the Zika virus as a pretext to weaken environmental regulations where it concerns pesticides. Now, Monsanto and the other chemical destroyers of life on this planet are right in there contributing all this goddamn money to get this done. Well, if you want to stop Zika, then you got to stop mosquitoes. You want to stop mosquitoes, get rid of these regulations about pesticides, god damn it. Republicans have introduced a bill, according to the Times here, that would allow businesses to spray pesticides on or near waterways without first notifying regulators, which is now required by law. Once called the Reducing Regulatory Burdens Act. Don't you love the names the sewer dwellers come up with when they design legislation that has only one outcome, and that is to make life more difficult for the greatest number of people? Don't you love the names? Reducing Regulatory Burdens Act. It's been changed. The bill was recently given a more ominous name. The Zika Vector Control Act. The idea being that with Zika lurking right around the corner, local governments should be able to bypass EPA and any other regulatory agency and use pesticides more easily. So once again, Republicans are using a medical emergency, which could become a global medical emergency, as a way to end regulation. The regulation that controls predatory capitalism to a small degree. But even that small degree is too much for the Republicans. That's one. Here's two. The Oklahoma legislature yesterday passed a bill that would effectively ban abortions. What did they do? They have decided that any doctor who performs an abortion would be subject to felony charges and revocation of their medical license. This is the first state legislature to do this. Now, abortion is a legal procedure. So this will wind up in the courts. It'll wind up possibly going to the Supreme Court. This is what these fucks do. They pass a law like this that is outrageous in its insanity. Doctors could be jailed, imprisoned. Now, this has been a year when states have tried to outlaw abortions at 20 weeks, or to ban the main surgical method used in the second trimester, abortion, and to shut down abortion clinics with these regulations. But Oklahoma's bill is in outer space. Now, the governor of Oklahoma, who happens to be a woman, has not signed it yet. And if she does, if it becomes law, there will be quick challenges in state and federal courts. And because the Supreme Court has consistently ruled that women have a right to obtain abortions until the fetus would be viable outside the womb, legal experts say it will soon be declared unconstitutional. They know that. But these filthy bastards, I don't care if it's Oklahoma, Georgia, Mississippi, it doesn't matter. This is the death dance that these goddamn Republicans do. Here's another one. House and Senate, I'm just going to quote this. House and Senate negotiators reached agreement yesterday on far-reaching legislation to overhaul, whenever you see that word, watch out, to overhaul the nation's 40-year-old law governing toxic chemicals, a compromise that will subject thousands of household chemicals to regulation for the first time. Sounds good, doesn't it? Huh? Public health advocates and environmentalists have complained for decades that the 1976 Toxic Substances Control Act is outdated, riddled with gaps that leave us exposed to all sorts of terrible stuff. Under current law, around 64,000 chemicals are not subject to environmental testing and regulation. But now they have this wonderful idea. Subject thousands of household chemicals to regulation for the first time. Da-da! And some Democrats are on board with this. Da-da! The authors of the bill say it would strengthen the laws. However, Daniel Rosenberg of the National Resources Defense Council said yesterday that the new bill was still too weak, citing its preemption of states' authority, its failure to provide the EPA with enough authority to check imported products, and its restrictions on citizens' abilities to petition the EPA. This is another anti-consumer, anti-democracy law. If this law passes, you and I would not be able to challenge the law. The states in which we live would not be able to challenge, would not be able to challenge the state. And the people who would decide what gets sprayed or dumped or placed in your neighborhood, your house, your DNA, will be the chemical industry. And worse, the pesticide branch of the chemical industry. This is called, in these weird times, that's called a compromise. Democrats have signed off on, oh yeah, that sounds good.